Yo. The kids official sliding on the instrumental. Nordic combos, twist your mental like forbidden.
Peace to the public and power to the people. You are now in tune with the space where the vulnerable are powerful and where the most gangster thing you can do is serve. This is, as always, All the Way Live.
This is undoubtedly the All the Way Live show. I'm Miles. I'm not Miles. I'm Zwin. And I'm with my brother, Miles.
We're all Miles, you know?
We're all Miles on this show, and what we do every single week is come through with a show that gives you that carefully curated content for your cranium. We do it weekly, we do it consistently, and we do it for a host of reasons. Some of those reasons are we do research, we interrogate things, and we give y'all some stuff that sounds smart around your friends and at a dinner table with, say, drop a little smart quote in between conversations. Have people be like, yo, that's interesting. Where did you hear about that?
Big facts, big facts. This is the space where art meets impact.
All the time. Art meets impact. And what we do this for, the reason we do it for more than anything, man, and I know for me personally this week, I'm extremely grateful for this space, is that we know people are going through things, man. We know people are going through depression. We know people are going through loneliness. We know that suicide is at an all-time high. We know that things are tough for people, man. And so what we try and do is create a space of positive, intentful energy, so you can come through over here, get some of that positive energy, and keep you going throughout the week, keep you going throughout the day to be the best version of yourself, man. And it gives me all the joy to be able to say that we do it weekly, and this week ain't no different.
No, it's not. And I definitely feel like I'm my best self in this space. So thank you for joining me in conversation here. Thank y'all out there. Exeter's in the building in a big way. Via Zway and Hassan on the board. Shout out to our producer, man. Holding things together. Can't do this thing without you. And on this side, you know what's going on, man. It's a rainy, snoozy, sleepy, slow Sunday in Chicago. This podcast is recorded on stolen land. This land was cared for by the Potawatomi people, the Council of the Three Fires, and the violence done to remove them from this land is inseparable from the violence that we see in this city today, this country today, and this world today. So we got to acknowledge that. We got to work on that. We got to lift up love between Black and brown people the world over. We got to lift up love for indigenous people the world over. And that's how y'all know the intro's over. We about to get into the show.
Yeah, I get that, but is we live though? Is we like all the way live though? You heard?
This is the space, like my brother Miles said, where impact meets art. Miles is a community organizer serving in the south side of Chicago, putting together all sorts of activations and community gatherings. I myself regard myself as a activist as well, working with Miles through our foundation, the Mandula Foundation, connecting the diaspora, bringing kids technology, bringing kids internet, food. This year, as we like to say, man, we're on our way to be able to deliver tens of millions of meals out to the people that need them. We do that, and we also highlight folks that make an impact throughout their art, man. And this week, it ain't no different. We're about to do the same thing too. We're highlighting some super dope art. Miles Xavier, talk to me about who we got coming up this week on our Artist Spotlight, man.
Today, we're taking a look at Julian Alexander. Some fire stuff for us to just talk through. And I appreciate how you introed the segment, right? You kind of told them what our lens is, that impact lens, that community work lens. But this is also a space where we just talk about what we like, right? That's why we do this segment. That's why we do the rec and review segment. That's a little popular. You know what I mean? We like to talk about the stuff that gets us through the day, the stuff that really resonates with us. And Julian's art is some of that. So yeah, we'd love to shout out the homies. It's also a way that we build engagement for the show. We've definitely been able to make some dope connections. Shout out to the Goody Room. But yeah, it's just been amazing to be able to use this part of the show in this segment to highlight other people that are doing amazing work.
It's all because like there's so much dope art that's happening right now. There's so much dope, incredible art that's happening. So as I don't like to say the word collector, you know, because true art collectors will let you know it takes many years and many seasons of putting things together to be able to call yourself a collector. However, somebody that does invest in art and somebody that takes their art as some of their prized possessions. You know, me and you, like, we share that together. What people don't know about us is that we go on art dates sometimes. You know, we go to galleries and we look up fly stuff. And when I see this work by Julian Alexander, it's very much in line with some of the things that if I was with my brother, I'd be like, yo, check this out. How dope is this?
Very fire. I don't know if art dates indicates how comfortable and consistently you spend time in galleries, right? I feel like in that space, right? I feel like, is it really a date if we just chilling where you already be at? Like, you're a gallery. I don't want to say a gallery rat, but that's where you be at. And you're right though. Like, maybe the right term is aspiring curators. Maybe that's what we are in this space. And a lot of the stuff that we like to curate is fire. I'm especially moved by depictions of Black folks, man, and all of their joy and all of their brilliance and radiance, unabashed depictions of Black folks. And I think that's what Julian Alexander brings with his art. I see myself in it, and not myself always that I present to the world, but myself that I feel, right? That I feel when my music's on and it's nobody watching. So the art that makes you feel that way, the art that reminds you of scenes from your childhood or from your day to day that resonates with you. This is that for me. I love the colors, the use of shading, all of it.
Yo, Julian, we think your stuff is dope, man. And also, we have a whole lot of other incredible creators that expose themselves towards the show. So if Julian is looking at this show, we do would like for you to reach out, brother, so we can continue to share your art on this platform of ours. Big up Julian Alexander. Miles, I know you do a whole lot of impact work, man. Talk to us about some of the things that are happening around impact in Chicago right now.
Yeah, man. Well, we getting ready to go into back to school mode, right? Post the bike tour that I talked about a couple weeks ago, which was an amazing event. Shout out to our high school interns. They got to come out, support, provide some people with some facts and some resources. So that was amazing. But yeah, so we getting ready to do a whole bunch of back to school fairs. Check out your local high school. I'm sure your local high school and elementary school, if you in the Chicagoland, especially the Bronzeville area, South Side area, you for sure got a back to school fair coming. We organizing those. If you don't know about one, put yourself in the comments. You know what I'm saying? So I can hook you up with a backpack and all sorts of goodies and notebooks and pencils and stuff for the kids. We got that going. When we was talking about Mandulo, you forgot to mention we got our second laptop recipient. They about to receive that, so that's big news, big air horn energy, right? That always feel good. As two brothers who use our laptops for our work, for our bread and butter, for this show, and whose laptops be temperamental at times, it's really amazing to be able to give that away. So in the spirit of back to school, in the spirit of being able to share resources with people, that's big energy too. And then on the end of the horizon, we got the Be the Healing conference coming soon as well. That's an amazing space where Dr. Joy DeGrew, who is an abolitionist teacher, who she shares some really meaningful ways to think about self-care and connect self-care to radical action and social issues today. So this year's conference is going to be themed around reparations and acknowledging our history. It's connected to the land acknowledgement that we do for this show. But the Be the Healing conference with Dr. Joy DeGrew, that's coming up in September. I don't want to get the dates wrong, so I ain't gonna say them, but it's fire. Look up Be the Healing through Organic Oneness, which is an organization that organizes dope events like that. Check that out. Any other impact? Any other stuff to spotlight? Oh, look at our producer pulling it up. Yo. Oh, snap. And yeah, also, if you're in the Bronzeville area, if you're in the South Side Chicago area, we got our community celebration September 17th. So we got that going. Man, he pulled up all the save the dates. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? We're going to see Encanto in the park August 20th. So if you want to bring the kids out to watch a dope Disney movie, that's going on. Yeah, man. Shout out to Hassan on the boards, man, showing all everything. That's
one of the best. Going. One of the best producers in the game. Like we said, this week we did give out a laptop into the Mandula Foundation. So congratulations to our laptop recipient. There's so much to be said about how helpful this tool is going to be to them, but also at the same time, man, it's important to note how much joy it gives us. You know, we congregate as a team and we go through the applications, and we hear these inspiring stories. So on one end, you know, it definitely feels good to know we're making a difference in someone's life, but it equally feels just as good to be. It's important that they know that they're making a difference in our lives too. You know, that energy continues to push us forward. And you hear about what these kids are going through. You know, a lot of them say that they do their work on their phones. That there was a lot of that, like, hey, I do my schoolwork on our phone. So congratulations to Usekani. She is studying IT at the University of Joburg. We're very proud of you. We think you're going to make an incredible difference in the world, and we're more than happy to be able to send this laptop over to you, which means it's time to get another kid to give a laptop to, man. It's another laptop got to go out. So calling for impact, man. If you do have an extra laptop, if you do have extra technology devices, if you know, sometimes when you work in corporate, they have all these additional things that are just laying around. Hit us up. Hit us up.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Especially if your office just turned over computers or anything like that. Ask where they going. You know, they could go to a really good cause, a really good place. And yeah, we'll continue to show you these impact stories of what happens when we all make moves together. So thank you for being in tune with us. Thank you for all the ways that you've contributed to this space. Continue to reach out to us. And if you have any initiatives going on that we can spotlight or highlight or lift up, for sure, reach out to us on that as well, because we would love to big that up. Make those connections and continue to build community. So that's it. That's all I got on that one.
Let's get into the show.
Sometimes I'll be looking at the schedule for the show and I'll be like, which are the topics that I'm going to introduce? And I'll be like, dang, that's a hard topic to introduce. Sometimes you just can't beat around the bush. It's no use. So this one is sex work, the professionalization of sex work. And my
Beat
brother's
around the
way.
bush. I see what you did there.
Nah. We ain't have to call it out either. We ain't have to, but you did. And I appreciate you. I'm glad you're here with me. You in tune. I'm glad. It's a tennis match, this thing. But I'm going to let you tell the people kind of the story that had us stumble upon this. And we'll take it from there.
So I was on LinkedIn and I see a post. And the post was that this young lady had put sex work as in her CV, and it caused outrage.
Hold on, let me stop you right there. You came across the post itself, or you came across the post in the form of an article? Because these are two different. I'm real intrigued.
You see, what that is, ladies and gentlemen, is two people that have been working with each other for a long time. Thank you, my brother, for catching me. No, I was not searching for sex workers on LinkedIn. What I did do, however, is I did see the post, the post that was indicating around the outrage that that was shown when this person put sex work up onto their CV. And naturally, as this process and this show goes, I bring it over to the team, and I knew that my search algorithms would be completely messed up again, because typing in sex work in Google, turns out there's a lot that shows up. Man. So I'd like to hear what you think about putting sex work in a CV.
Bold move, bold choice. That's where I'll start. But yeah, I think, and the woman's name is Ariel, or the person's name is Ariel. They identify as queer femme, so I'm gonna try and keep that correct the whole way through. But when I first saw it, it made me think of a couple of other things that are going on in the world, but it also made me think like, wow, that's like, at first it's like, that's crazy, that's radical, right? But then I thought like, well, two things, right? As an employer, what would be wrong with hiring a sex worker, right? And it took me longer to come up with like anything real than I thought. But the other thing is, what's braver, to post as a sex worker or to endorse that person's skills?
Well, both take a lot of skill. Both take a lot of bravery. Both take a lot of and you've actually you puzzled me with that one as an employer. I'm not sure how I'd go about it. On one end, I'd be impressed by the honesty, because a lot of the times as you're going through CVs, a lot of people aren't honest. You know, people will hype up the description of what it is that they do. If someone works at, say, a retail store folding clothes, they would be expert an expert item organizer. You know, something to that effect. That's how people decorate words. So the honesty on that, I'd be impressed by. But it definitely does touch on the stigma of sex work, especially now that we live in an age where terms like sex entrepreneur are things that are being said. And, you know, there is many cases of people making absurd amounts of money off of platforms like OnlyFans. Right. So it would be unfair to justify someone taking an initiative to do something on their own that they manage, that they invest in, that brings them income, to not call that work. And then looking at some of the stigma around it, it's hard not to see the obvious fact that because most women engage in sex work, because it's mostly women that engage in sex work, that the stigma is there, especially when you consider the fact that sex work is technically the oldest profession.
Yeah, there is for sure an irony there, right? But also, like, we, at least in the Western world, at least from my experience, we like go out of our way to separate sex from our work environment. Like, the office is designed to be a very sex free place, right? We don't always succeed in that. It'd be a lot of harassment that be going on. It'd be a lot of other stuff that be going on. That's cool. Like, you know, it's all consensual. If it's cool, that's cool. But we think of it as places where we don't show our sexual self ever, right? Not to our coworkers. And so that's why I think there's like this visceral reaction to seeing somebody be so on Front Street about it. But yeah, like I said, bro, it's what would be wrong with that, with hiring that person? Like, from a perspective, like you outlined, there's so many aspects of that career that would make you really good at negotiating, that would make you really good at communicating, safety, right? And these aren't things I'm coming up with off the top of my head. These are things that I kind of saw when I was exploring this. But I think the other thing, besides the fact that we're all very uptight and uncomfortable about sex, it makes us squirm and glance around the room to see who's going to talk first, right? But other than that, I think it's the fact that in a lot of places, sex work is illegal, right? And so there's also this, some forms of sex work, right? Prostitution, because sex work encompasses a lot of different things, right? But people immediately, often, as I just did, jump to prostitution, right? And use it as a blanket term. And because prostitution is illegal, there's a conflict there, I think, with the workplace that a lot of people assume, which I think takes us to the idea of like decriminalizing sex work. And is that a good idea?
So the hypocrisy in it is that if you're doing prostitution, it is illegal. However, if you put a camera in that process, it then becomes art, and then it's not illegal, it then becomes porn. So sex for money is not illegal. Sex for money is not technically illegal if there's a camera involved. To all the sex workers, I say to you, keep a GoPro. I'm joking. I'm being facetious, but it does speak towards the hypocrisy of the hypocrisy of those laws, like you speak. And unfortunately, like many laws that we see, people of color tend to be unjustly targeted and at the worst end of that. In New York specifically, most and almost all of the people that were arrested for prostitution or soliciting prostitution were people of color.
I mean, all these issues, right? Across sectors, housing, food insecurity, everything relate back to racism, right? But also patriarchy, right? And all of these structures that put us in messed up positions, and allow us not only to not be our full selves, but to treat other people as less than human. And I think that's what our culture around putting a taboo on sex in general, but specifically sex work, right? And that's referring to everything from strippers to our current, discussions around OnlyFans. We're like, we have to start thinking about the bigger picture, and then and the bigger picture when it comes to work like this oftentimes is safety, right? Women are a lot safer and feel a lot safer when they're able to professionalize this career in ways that allow them to create safety, and that's important, right? Like that makes for a better experience for everybody. I think, I would assume, right? I would hope. And so I just think it's really interesting when we can't get past that uncomfortable feeling in order to have these conversations at a realer level. But when you think about the idea of sex work as work, when you think about the idea of decriminalizing sex work for the safety of those, for mainly prostitutes and stuff like that, yeah, what does that make you think about? Because we know a place.
There is a place, and it's funny you speak of this place. Like, there are places where it is legal, right? So it's illegal in most states in the U.S., but in places like Nevada and some certain states, it is legal to solicit sex for money, which it does make it very hypocritical. It's hard for me not to address the fact that it seems like, to me, men are hating that men can't sell sex, mainly. You know, there's no men's strip clubs really that are popping out there. There's no dudes out there just slanging it. You know, gigolos is a niche market. So
I think you're speaking from I think the world's bigger than you think it is.
No, listen. I could be.
I don't know how far you've ever looked into any of those things, but they out there, I'm sure.
No, they are out there. They are out there. And I'm talking about straight men in particular. I'm talking straight men. Prostitution is the small percentage of the sex workers' sphere. But one of the things that I had to confront about my assumptions on it is the fact that, man, definitely it does make people, it is something that is unsafe, especially prostitution. Like you said, sex work encompasses a lot of things. Prostitution is something that is unsafe, and you think to yourself, man, anybody that's in that place only wants to do it because they're at a last resort, and it's because they have no other choice. And although that might be true for some cases, that's not true for all cases. There are people who do see the benefits and the values of being able to provide sexual services as a job in order to help people, you know. We talk about how lonely people are right now. We talk all the time about how difficult it is to get a date, how difficult it is to meet people in this day and age, right? And especially when you think about how porn is just corrupting our understanding of what sex is supposed to be. Like Miles said, I don't want to beat around the bush about it, but like, people would say that sex workers provide an outlet for people to have a safe environment where they can come into spaces and then explore their fantasies, explore their kinks, learn better about how to service their partners. And also, if it's your first time and you know you're finding it really difficult to be able to get that nut off, you could go to a place where they'd be able to coax you in quite comfortably. But that can come if we open up the doors for a more inclusive sex work experience. As long as it's still made illegal, the people that will be participating in it are the people that thrive under illegal circumstances. And that's, again, brings us back to the point of, why is it that a human function is made illegal? And that's why I keep saying it seems to unfairly want to be able to control the bodies of women, is what it feels like to me.
That's real. And I hope y'all out there are having as much fun as I am with all the euphemisms, right? We we like to have fun. But I think you highlighted a lot of really important things, particularly that, like, there's that unwillingness extends control over people that we don't like. It shouldn't be up to us what happens with them, right? Especially when they're telling you that they want to operate a certain way. This search brought me into a lot of different places. I learned a lot, right, about the perspective of people who are trying to create systems of safety on the street, about how sex workers are natural allies in fighting against human trafficking, right? They're often the people that get to refer people to services that are encountering people and can understand who's doing this because they want to and who's doing this against their will, right? And just in general, creating a culture of respect around women that currently doesn't exist, right? I think if we continue to relegate a certain amount of people to this position where we say it's okay to not ignore them and to treat them like garbage because we don't hold the same values, we lower the standard at which to which we treat all people, and I think that's currently really hurting our society in terms of the way that we treat women. So I think we need to elevate the way that we treat everybody. um I'm glad that when we brought up different spaces, you were able to highlight some ones that are kind of in the U.S. where some of this different kind of sex work is legal. Thanks for keeping it local. You know, a few people probably writing a few things down, but also the space that I thought was really interesting was Amsterdam, because that's always been a space that I've thought of as like free in that way, right? Particularly the light district is famous the world over for, you know, allowing people to come and fulfill their fantasies in that type of way with brothels and what have you. Um, but I was also like, it connects to this conversation because over there, they getting the same pushback, and they're actually thinking about in 2021, the mayor was saying, yo, we about to move this to the outskirts of town, create a, what are they going to call it? They were going to call it a an erotic center, which to me sounds crazy. I like red light district much better than erotic center, but that's a whole nother conversation, right? But I'm just saying, like, that pushback that you speak of, that want to control, I think there's a discomfort, but even more than that, there's a clash of like belief systems where a lot of folks, their fundamental belief system says that what this type of work is wrong, and so that's why it continues to be pushed off to the sidelines. And this is an example of that. I don't know if you ever been to Amsterdam. We don't need to get into no detailed stories, but you know, what's your thoughts on this as somebody who spent time in Europe and may have had the opportunity?
Oh, Miles is implying that I bought sex in Amsterdam. My mom listens to the show.
No,
My mom never.
no.
In
I'm
my
just saying,
life.
have you been to Amsterdam?
I have. And actually,
That's all I'm saying.
Did you spend money in Amsterdam? If we can have an open, honest conversation about it, dude. I've been to Amsterdam, bro, and I walked down the red light district, and I'll be upfront. And I'm sorry, whoever doubled this pop, it is nasty. The red light district is nasty. It is so nasty. And as a boy, definitely you have these fantasies about being able to be, oh, you get to see naked women in windows. First of all, the people that go to watch naked women in windows are nasty people usually. So you have to stand with people that feel comfortable looking at naked women in windows. Not a comfortable feeling. Okay, there's a lot of trench coat action, if you know what I'm talking about. A lot of oversized jackets outside of the red light. It's nasty, dude. It's absolutely nasty. Look, move it. Move it. Put more coffee shops over there. And I understand sex work is employment for people, but like, I'm just saying, like, personally, I thought it was a super nasty experience.
Well, see, I didn't even know what we were in for when I invited you to share your knowledge. But see, I'm glad I did. Thank you for really bringing us back down to earth, right, in terms of our realistic expectations of the red light district. Some images I might not be able to get out of my head, but these are the sacrifices that we make for the show. It's all good. So I feel you. And that's kind of what the residents are saying. They're saying it brings out a seedy population, right, that they want to disperse and they want to relegate to this different area. Folks that operate and are professionals in the red light district don't want to move, and what they're saying cites back to safety, right, where they're saying this is easier to keep track of people in this populated area. They don't want to be moved to the outskirts where there's going to be less police, there's going to be less activity. They've built a community in this space and a system of support that they don't want to break down. And it's really interesting to me to like hear like the mayor's perspective, right? He was saying that they don't want the country to be known for drugs and sex. They want to focus more on their history and move this district. But some of these buildings in the red light district have been there for centuries, right? So like we're talking about like 15th century. So it's kind of like it's part of your history, my dude. You can't, but I understand, the Netherlands has a deeper culture that's more about a lot of other things. I just think it's important to consider in this whole conversation the voice of these people that are saying, one, that they need safety in this space, but two, that have so much to contribute in the ways that we all need to de-taboo and stop beating around the bush.
Here's a real question for you. If given a safe environment, would you facilitate funds and pay for, say, a son of yours or relative of yours that's had significant issues being able to be intimate with the partner, right? And wants to be able to get that experience and is unable to do it, given a safe environment, would you encourage them, facilitate it, and pay for it?
It would be a very particular path that I think took us all the way to me paying for a sex worker to help with that issue. I think I would hope, as uncomfortable as it is to talk to about sex with your parents, that's the dynamic that I know and have experienced, right? Like trying to talk to it with my kid, I would hope that we can create an open enough environment where we can have conversations about why that is and what are their expectations of sex and have they been watching a lot of porn and what's their partner's wants and how does their partner feel, right? So I would think that there's a deeper conversation, and I guess I would be, my immediate thought isn't that the problem is that they're not with somebody who knows what they're doing and can go and get that about them. You know what I'm saying? I would think that there's probably some issues related to nerves or anxiety or expectations around performance that I would want to make sure that it's none of that, right? Before we do something like that.
That's very on nose with a lot of the issues that we're seeing men have, right? So there's a growing number of men in their 20s and 30s who are experiencing sexual frustration related issues like ED or erectile dysfunction. So on one end, they're saying that it's this oversupply of performance enhancing pills that young men are taking. So younger men are now reporting to have sexually related issues. Miles takes a sip of his water. You can infer from that what you want. And so there is a big mental element. There is a big mental element to it. Go ahead, Miles, explain the sip. The vulnerable are powerful now.
Yeah, big facts. Big facts. I'm trying to think of like the most vulnerable thing I can say, which is that like, yeah, sex ain't porn, yo. Like, and we all hopefully get to experience different partners and learn different things from each of those partners. And I'm a learner.
Sex ain't porn is the most vulnerable thing you could say.
I think that's something that don't get said enough, yo.
I second that. That's my line too. Sex definitely is important. I agree.
Come on, man. You don't throw the steak straight in the pan. You got to put some oil down, salt bed. What you mean?
I need to ask you something though. I need to ask you something on this line. How were you introduced to sex through your parents? How did your parents have the talk with you?
Nah, my parents was late. My parents was late to the game.
Yes, last week
they was late to the game. They was late. They was my dad knew they was late. My dad knew that it had went and gone. My mom was a little bit more surprised, and that's part of the problem. That's part of the issue, right? However old I was when I lost my virginity, right? It took them all them years to try and have that conversation and couldn't get it done before I experienced that out in the world. And that's what we got to break down. We got to be able to have these type of conversations, yo. How did your parents introduce the the talk to you?
Dare I say too early? My mom brought up way too early. through song. Brought up way too early.
Spectrum. So double Dutch.
I still remember the book. We pulled up. She opened up a book, and it was a sexual assault book. Actually, it's my body is my body, nobody's but mine.
It was a sexual assault poetry book.
Listen, I don't want listen. First of all, my mom's an educator, so shout out Momzo for wanting to teach the boy the right thing.
The resources.
I had the resources, and more so was more protective. You know, it wasn't just like this is what sex is. Just like if anybody does this to you, no, it's wrong. You know, and that makes sense from a parent protective aspect.
Got you. They went that route with it.
Yeah. They went the assault route.
Also an important conversation. But we got. While we be intentional about not traumatizing these kids, got to make sure we click the not for kids on this YouTube video. But it's serious. All of our hangups get transferred into our kids when we can't really just hash these conversations out in a real way. And we we either too late or too early. It's a balancing act. We got to forgive our parents for that, right? But the goal is to educate ourselves and be better parents, and to be more open about those conversations in the future. So many thoughts right now, but I guess the most prominent that I want to get out before we end this segment is think about what your thoughts are on this conversation, right? Like, what does it mean to professionalize sex work, and where are the touch points in your community that you would go and are going to get tested, y'all? All right, for sure.
Yup.
And learn more about sex work, learn more about just like advance your sexual education, whether you're a parent or not. And then two, if you already on board with that and you already rocking and kind of in tune with what we're saying, then you can go and support the Sex Workers Project, which is a national organization that defends the human rights of sex workers by destigmatizing and decriminalizing people in the sex trades through the free legal services, education, research, and policy advocacy. Yeah.
That's how you know my brother's an activist, always bringing in solutions, always bringing you things that you can take forward off of these conversations, man. That's why the show is so important for us. We like to share information and we like to educate ourselves. So, without further ado, let's get to current news. So, speaking of body parts, right? Speaking of body parts, one of the fascinating things about COVID is that it's forced all of us to have to focus on our health and have a deeper look into our into science and medicine and things of that nature. So, for us, it was quite an exciting stumble upon. To come about this conversation about the regenerative capabilities in the science field about stem cells and potentially the ability to be able to grow new limbs. Miles Xavier, with no reference whatsoever to the previous conversation, if you had to grow a new limb, what limb would it be?
I'm a what do they call it? I'm a doomsday prepper, right? So in prepping for doomsday, I would be like, let me get an extra kidney. I need the extra liver. You know what I'm saying? Extra heart. I would be for sure trying to build up all the extra body parts. You dig me?
Now,
The
you see,
organs, straight organs. That's what I'm going for.
I don't play with y'all. I build myself a new fist. Another fist. 3 fists on y'all.
To fight or for like black power or
All 3. 1, black power. 2, to fight. To fight. But part of that regenerative limbs conversation leads into these first synthetic embryos that have been created, right? These synthetic embryos, and part of the reason of creating those synthetic embryos is said to be able to harvest new forms of organs and whatnot. So that immediately, for a lot of people, sparks up a whole lot of discussions around how ethical is it to have synthetic embryos? What does that mean? Do we have synthetic kids?
I'm not the person to answer these questions first and foremost. I think it's important to be vulnerable and powerful at the same time and say that, yo, like, I have more questions than answers with this one as well. But my gut reaction is if that being, when it grows up, has a full consciousness, then we have some very complicated questions ahead of us, right? And we already see what the Supreme Court doing. Everybody that the abortion folks gonna be on y'all ass about this. I don't know. I don't know how to take it, but I think we're getting into a space where the ways that we're playing with technology are I don't. It's like a reach our seeds our grasp type thing. You know what I mean? I'm don't know if we've thought through the ramifications of this or if we just playing with it in a way that just because we can. You know what I mean? So I'd be interested to learn more. What did you find out?
So scientists at the Weizmann Institute in Israel found that stem cells from mice could be made to assemble into early embryo-like structures with intestinal tract, the beginnings of a brain, and a beating heart. Known as synthetic embryos because they are created without fertilized eggs. The living structures are expected in the near term to dive deeper understanding of how organs and tissues form during the development of natural embryos. But researchers believe the work could also reduce animal experimentation and ultimately pave the way for new sources of cells and tissues for human transplantation. So it does kind of look to move away from some of the traditional. Yo, this picture's hilarious, by the way. If you really look at what's inside of these, is that a teardrop and then a bone? Let's go down. But if part of how the stem cells are being harvested right now, obviously, is within the natural production of embryos. And on one end, you do have folks that are saying that the practices of being able to do that could lead us down a very nefarious path where we are essentially got women held up producing embryos just so we can take them and produce these stem cells, which is why this particular element would come through with a solution towards that. But it's hard not to think about it in the form of, say, like The Matrix or some of these other movies that we have seen where they're just growing folks in these vacuum tubes, and out pops Matt Damon looking like dude with his head bald out of some slimy goo.
Yeah, I actually love the way that you just ended that comment, because it's how I feel about this whole conversation, right? There are certain topics and like social questions that we don't have a space to talk about yet. And so we all are just kind of left to go with our gut feeling, like, because no amount of science, no amount of explaining to me like how synthetic the baby is, like if it and I say baby, I'm already probably messing up scientifically, right? It's probably embryo or fetus or whatever. But I think it is those emotional connections that my brain automatically makes that goes, nah, don't take the little baby's bone. You know what I'm saying? Don't take his little teardrops. You know, he gonna need those. And yeah, there's an awkward question of what happens to the embryo once, you know, you've taken whatever you've taken from it. I think for anybody who sees that as a human life, it's going to be real hard. This is going to be a real hard question to swallow. And where's the appropriate place, especially for an adult, to like gain information for us to have conversations and decide how we feel about this? Or are we just going to end up protesting in the streets about yet another issue like this?
Another instance again where the research on this show forces us to view the line between technological development and an ethical morality line, and you've highlighted those ethical lines quite well. How far is too far with this embryo cultivation process? But then on the other side, there's also the reality of how many people are suffering from things such as kidney failure. So about 10% of the population in the US suffer from kidney failure. The average cost for those people is between $100,000 to $200,000, given the U.S. Healthcare system. So the traditional the methods that are used now are way too expensive for people, and a huge percentage of people clearly suffer from these issues. So if there is a better way to be able to harvest these things, it makes you wonder, what is more important, the process of trying to develop a solution that can help the current people, or are the ethics that we pursue on that process a bit too far? And synthetic embryos, I think is important to note, does not mean babies like you say. That's not particularly what it is. It's tapping more so into the regenerative sciences that already exist within our functions. Livers do regenerate themselves. Anyone between the ages of 7 and 11, if you cut the end of your pinky, it can regrow itself, you know. So there are those features. It would be, I'm fascinated in science looking at the extents that we can take to take full advantage of this universe of an organism that we don't fully understand, really.
Yeah. And like, I appreciate what you're saying about the amount of people that it could help. Right. I think it's and it makes me think of the ways in which we already produce things that we don't really want to see how it's made. And we are able to, like, look at hot dogs. Right. So uncomfortable truth. So uncomfortable truth. Right.
You want to talk about the hot dogs of science.
Kinda. You know what I'm saying? Like, in a way that, yeah, you know, I don't particularly want to be in the embryo shack. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if I want to see that, but I would love and be deeply moved by a story about, or to have a family member that was, saved by this new scientific process. That's amazing. I'm sure there are people like literally praying for this right now to become an option. So from that perspective, I definitely see it. Yeah, it's a complicated one for sure.
Especially when you understand how complicated the body really is, right? For instance, if you do have heart surgery, you can't just take one heart out of somebody and put it into somebody else. Like, it doesn't work that way. It's a very particular process. Same thing with many body parts. You can't just take a body part out and fit it into the body. The body will actually fight that body part, almost trying to kill it, actually, which is why it's so very specific on what on heart transplants and that type of thing, right? So this could almost be an insurance of sorts, where you take a piece of your body and maybe of your kids' bodies, and then you grow these embryos as a just in case my eye pops out, bloop, you can just. Okay, that's too far. We found the line. Too far.
Nah, but that's low key how I opened the segment, right? By saying like, if I could grow them, and I was thinking, I don't know, like on the beanstalk type, like I was walking into a garden and pick up a heart. You know what I'm saying? Out of some lettuce looking like shrub, but had to let that marinate, right? Had to let that sink in, but. When you put it in terms of like, yeah, an embryo, there is this like visceral reaction to it. Dang, I forgot what I was gonna say after that. The visual got me too. But yeah.
Intense visualization. Would you invest in something of this sort if the science had finally gotten to a place?
Thank you. That's actually where I was going. No, I'm betting on 3D printers. You know what I'm saying? This is still icky. And I appreciate you breaking down the science. I appreciate it. But I think I'm going to put my money on the 3D printers to get there. Print me a liver. I'll take it.
You see? There you have it, folks. Print Miles a liver is the name of this episode. or picking hearts like shrubs. Your viewer's choice. Hit the comments below with hearts like shrubs. print liver. It's up to you.
Hearts Like Shrub sounds like an A Boogie track.
Oh man. Listen, man. This is what we give y'all. This is what you can expect. Definitely prioritize health. There's a whole lot of fascinating information around the different ways that we understand the body can work. I believe that the body is a universe unto itself. It wasn't until like the late 30s and the late 40s that we actually realized the bioelectrical capabilities that the body works in, which is to say that organs and the body actually communicate within themselves through electricity, and store information. Something fascinating is that moths, as they turn into butterflies, their brain liquefies. They liquefy within that cocoon, but can still hold memory.
Bruh. Yeah, I've taken a few things that liquefied my brain, but never never like that. I didn't come out a butterfly.
You were a fly, though. You were a fly, though. You were a fly. Hey, man, this is the show that we give y'all. We come through here and talk about embryos. We come through here talking about all sorts of information and whatnot. And we know what y'all here for.
Yeah, it's one thing and one thing only. And we bring you that every week. Rec and Review. This one's personal. All right. I'm speaking to the 80% of black men out there that had rap aspirations at some point. Joey Badass was really the only rapper that I ever felt a type of way about. And their rapping ability, I think I've been overly critical of Joey Badass in the past, because Joey Badass is my age. He's literally like a couple months younger than me, right? And he's been in the game since I was like 16. You know what I mean? So there's an interesting relationship, I think, with like wanting to rap and, you know, seeing somebody who was young and really trying to be lyrical and putting out music. And I always had respect for him. rap better than him for sure, but always have respect for him. And
Controversial.
and this project, I get to say that, man. I'm a podcaster. That's the whole point. I'm out the game. I'm retired. That's if nothing else, I get to make ridiculous statements like that. But no cap, this is a really dope project. It's one of my favorites from Joey Badass. Hats off to him. I think this shows maturity and growth from a project that was already really, really, really fire in 1999. So this is like a moment. I just appreciate it. I love good hip hop, and this is that to me. And I love bringing these conversations to you. What did you think?
Very much in the same way, man. I just like to thank Joey Badass for making this album. And I don't come through and say that often about music, but I just like to thank this man for making this album, man. It at its essence, it's a love letter to his best friend, Capital Steez. It really does touch on the loss of Capital Steez, who took his life. We took his life in 2012, shortly after Joey Badass had dropped 1999. Within that same period, when 1999 did drop, Joey did come onto the scene as this was in the time of Purple Swag. This was in the time of music making a bit of a shift back into the New York scene, but through the ASAP lens, through the Flatbush Zombie lens, through the there was a bubbling noise within New York, right? And prior to that ASAP scene, it was very West Coast driven music. We're busy dancing a lot of it. So Joey in 1999 came as a fresh breath of air, with this very classical New York sounding hip hop that hadn't been heard in a very long time. 1999 really leaned quite heavily on the traditional hip hop boom bap sound that people know hip hop for. So being that young and being able to encompass so much what they'd call an old soul was an impressive feature that made Joey Badass stand out among his contemporaries. So songs like Illuminati, Survival Tactics, all those things coming out of 1999 was extremely impressive and gave people that feeling of old school New York. He continued that going on to Badass in 2015, which was really dope too. But people kind of started feeling like Joey Badass lost a step. Especially when he went into that All-American Badass, which was a commercial success, but people like, man, he's becoming too commercial. So after dropping American Badass in 2017, we saw Joey Badass now venture into all sorts of other media expressions, particularly acting, going into the acting sphere. And we didn't really hear back from Joey Badass for a while. So to come through and drop 2000 as a direct continuation of the standout album 1999, it said a lot off the rip about what Joey is trying to say with this album. So 2000 comes in and it's like, okay, this is the continuation of what many feel is your best work. What's going to happen here? How are you going to continue with it? And if you're looking at what growth looks like, but still keeping tight towards what made you popular amongst your core fans, and what confidence in hip hop likes, and what it looks like to execute on a continuation after 10 years, it says a lot, man. It says a lot. I think this particular album right here is one of Joey's best work, man. It's really good. It's really good.
Yeah, it's stand out is the word, right? Stand out and standing on your own too, right? Joey is somebody who's been in the game as long as some of the rappers that we really like think of as the voices of this generation, right? Like Joey was coming out around the same time as Kendrick, maybe even a little bit before that Kendrick really blew up mainstream. And so it's really interesting. And I want to circle back to this conversation about his peers and who are his peers and what conversations he's in. But I just want to really commend this brother for like really just being himself, right? He never, so many trends since his first album, right? So many different types of music, so many phases of hip hop, and Joey has remained himself. He's remained New York throughout the entire the entire duration. I like what you said about All American Badass, and it was kind of a more commercially aimed album, but I still felt like even in that he was trying to bring his ability to that arena and his style to that arena. It doesn't always work. Artists swinging for that commercial fence is often some of my least favorite projects, but it shows that he hasn't. I don't know, man. Like when you say that people felt like he lost a step, I never felt like he lost a step. I just felt like he was trying something different. And when you got the longevity that he has, I think that's really commendable. Shout out to his acting gigs too. I dug Raising Kanan season 3. That was fire. Like, or not even season 3. It's like Power, Book of Kanan, season 1. And I'm already saying too much about a show about Power, but that particular series was fire, and Joey did a good job in that. So yeah, man, 2000. Some of my favorite tracks. I love the way he opened this album. The Baddest, Make Me Feel Where I Belong. Some dope stuff. Cool to see West Side on it. But then Zip Codes. I love how he showed Zip Codes, One of Us with Larry June, fire. I like with Welcome Back and Show Me, kind of the more romantic tracks. He kind of did a fun one and then showed like a more mature side of his romantic song making ability. Like Survivor's Guilt gets deep into what you were saying, man, about, the loss of a homie, the loss of a friend, and I think we can all relate to that. There's so much here, man. It's deep, and he really delivered. Which brings me back to what I was saying, bro. We've had a few conversations now, especially with the recent releases, West Side Boogie. We've thrown a few names around. Who are Joey's peers, and does Joey belong in that fight for who the next generation's best rapper is?
That's up to him. That's up to him. And if we look at the break that he took from 2017 to putting this out, and the significant difference in the type of style that he comes out with between his last offering to this one, definitely you could put him in contention with that. The honesty is there, the vulnerability is there, the skill set is there, the intentional arrangement of music is there. Jumping straight into that first track by leading with Diddy, what that's saying is I'm making a statement. Like, this is a New York album. I'm gonna get New York's heavy hitter. I'm gonna get one of the bosses of New York to sign off on this first track. I'm gonna talk my shit, and then going into where I belong. I belong right here, and this is where he says Kendrick, Cole, and Joey. That's where he puts himself. But I like the other contemporaries that you've put around him, which is your West Side Boogies, which is your Jid, who he features on this album. Anytime somebody features Jid, it says one thing and one thing only: I'm here to rap. I'm here to rap. That's all I'm here to do. Not my favorite song off the album. However, it still doesn't take away from the value and the statement that it makes. If you don't want to rap, you're not going to put Jid on your album. I don't care what type of beat you're trying to put on, because Jid's going to rap. Jid's going to Jid. You know what I'm saying? So his contemporaries, I would have to say Chance the Rapper. The interesting thing, Miles, is that it seems this move is successful for Joey, and something that I would want to say Chance is looking to emulate going into this new phase in his career after so much after so much success, and then having a bad reception of his last couple of albums. It looks like Joey is setting the line of what it looks like to have your old work be loved, and then dropping something that is in that pays homage, not homage, but like it speaks towards your core fans, but still is progressive in its content and in its sound, because this is very progressive, mature music. He's our age, so a lot of the things that he says I relate to. Who else would you put around him as his contemporaries?
Yeah, I mean, I think this album puts him in that conversation with Reason and Boogie and Isaiah Rashad, in terms of he's not far from that mantle. I agree with you that Chance is knocking at that door, trying maybe even a little bit harder for that distinguished art side with A Bar About a Bar and his most recent releases, and even the artwork that he's choosing for those. But it feels organic from Joey. It feels effortless. It feels like not like 1999 in terms of that same boom bap sound, but that skill set is allowing him to make more mature music, like you said, mature in content, and also mature in sound, man. This is like, You know who else could have rapped on almost all of these beats is Rick Ross. And whether or not you love Rick Ross as a rapper, that's high praise in terms of beat selection. This is luxurious rap. This is great. Like he's going for timeless music, and that really shows. Yeah. So with that, I want to hit you with a couple rapid fire ones, like Joey Badass or Reason.
Personal preference, especially after this album, it has to go to Joey Badass. You?
I gotta say that 2000 is better than New Beginnings, but I'll still say that Reason is, yeah, personal preference. I would say there's something about Reason's straightforward delivery and his persona that I really identify with. But Joey, I'm not mad at anybody saying Joey's better. And if I had to make an objective list, I'd probably put Joey above him. Just so, and that's saying a lot.
What you said about Joey's music coming out effortlessly, I think is the caveat that separates it. And I think time in the game and being able to have gotten something that was critically acclaimed and then follow up with it is quite difficult, because you could have named this anything else and we could have still related it somewhat. Like, this sounds like 1999, what many consider your best. But if you go, nah, take my best and I'm putting this out right next to it, and for it to still stand up, I think is something that Reason would have to accomplish first for me to be able to make that. Excuse me, I'm allergic to unequal comparisons.
That's funny. All right, so then Joey or Boogie?
You see, what Miles is trying to do right now, ladies and gentlemen, is stoke a very deep fight that we have outside of these cameras. That's tough. And I cannot answer that. I got one for you: Isaiah Rashad or Joey?
Isaiah, but I mean, I think there's a consistency there. I think you could put 2000 up with The House Is Burning, and if you wanted to argue with me track for track, I'd argue with you, but I wouldn't be mad at you. But I think Isaiah's there's more of a consistent three there with Sylvia Demo, Sun's Tirade, and The House Is Burning. I think Joey's got a tough two. But I think what Isaiah's been able to do, and even there's something about Isaiah's creativity that in like charting his own path that puts him above Joey for me personally. So for me, it would be Isaiah, Boogie, Joey, and Reason got some work to do.
Hey, I like that. We just highlighted the
Joey or Jid.
Joey.
Really? Easily, huh?
Just got a lot of work. Just got a lot of work to do, because the scope, man. There's longevity value. Right? Jid's Never Story could be considered. It isn't a standout per se as 1999, but it is a standout for his catalog. And since then, I think Jid has yet to be able to offer us something that is as dope as Never Story. That's a top to bottom play.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, Jid's next project is supposed to be The Forever Story. So you may have that. You may have that coming to you. But yeah, for right now, I think Joey should really just take a victory lap, man. This is amazing in terms of the time in the game. New York has gone up and down, but for him to be here in 2022 with a West Side feature, I think that's beautiful. I hope he got some champagne on him, and I'm gonna keep this in rotation for a good little minute. I'm gonna give this
brother.
a solid 4 out of 5. 4, good 4. That's high praise. 5 out of 5 is tough. It would have to push boundaries and hit me in a different way. But in terms of solid music that shows growth, this is a nice little 4 for me.
And I'd like to say, man, and if we're being vulnerable, something that Joey's album did to me that many albums haven't done. I got very emotional listening to this album. I got very emotional, man. I really I might have even teared up on that survivor's guilt. You know, this is one of the things that we started this show, Miles, a few years ago, and we try to make this show happen a few times. It wasn't until the death of my cousin who took his life that we went all in, you know. And one of the reasons for that was just because for anyone that was going through something, we wanted to create a space where people can, like, if you're going through something dark, you can have some of this positive energy that we bring, and hopefully get you up out of that place, you know. And it's something that I think about a lot, man. I spoke to you specifically about the traumas of not being able to look at trees for half a year. You know, I'd look at trees and get sick because that's how my cousin decided to go out, man. So listening to the story and listening to this homage that he pays to his best friend who he lost, and the feelings of it resonated a lot and was very deep, man. So, you know, hip hop for us is not just music we enjoy. It's therapy. It's got healing components to it. It's life music. It's uplifting music. It's, you know, it's a lot to it. So for me, I want to thank this brother for making this album. The intention behind it to help people that are going through something similar is definitely felt on my end, man. And so just wanted to say definitely big ups to this album, 4 out of 5, man. And I look forward to the next offering that this brother has.
Just gotta let that breathe. Appreciate that, bro. Appreciate you sharing that. Appreciate you being vulnerable and powerful and open. And yeah, I just like that album touched people. I know that you connecting and sharing how it touched you is probably gonna touch people too. So always a pleasure to do this thing, man. Always a pleasure to talk about hip hop. Was excited to talk about this album with you. It was tough to not bring it up in pre-pro. Be like, yo, it's good, right? Like,
that's what this show robs us of. This show robs us of the ability to be able to talk as best friends and be like, yo, I love this music.
Yo, but yes, I appreciate you telling your story, because I definitely thought of, you know, all those same things. You know, that's family to me too. So it gets deep, it gets really real, and that's what we here for. That's why we do this. That's what this space is, because we know. Yeah, man, we know people just going through it, and we know it's way too many podcasts. And so somewhere between those two truths lies this show. This is a celebration of celebrating. This is a celebration of life. This is a celebration of how good it feels to have good hip hop. Don't it feel good, way?
This ain't a podcast, and it feels great.
True. Big show, big show, big experience energy, right? And the podcaster is formerly known as Chestnut and Hazelnut. Listen, we hope that you have enjoyed rocking with us this Sunday, man. This is a special place. Shout out to Hassan, our producer, for holding it down on the boards. We hope that you eat something delicious, that you hug somebody you love, and you listen to some music that feels good to you. Peace, water, we gone.